Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Azra Hassan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Indian fishermen carrying illegal fishing equipment invade Sri Lankan waters. Farmers affected by a shortage of paddy seeds and fertilizer. German ambassador responds to State Minister Dillu Mamunugama's statement on Hitler. Says Hitler is not a role model to any politician. Uruttettuwe Thero also displeased. Consumer rights advocate Asela Sampath arrested.
Encroachments by Indian fishermen on Sri Lankan waters and the plundering of our resources in the process has been a long-standing issue. Against such a backdrop, Minister of Fisheries Douglas Devananda recently said that a proposal was submitted to allow Indian fishermen to fish in Sri Lankan waters by issuing them permits for a price. Newsfirst travelled to the seas up north to assess the true magnitude of this issue. This exclusive report is brought to you by Newsfirst Riaz Harix, Zulfik Farzan, Mahinda Gamage and M. Madhivanan.
Newsfirst set out to sea from the island of Delft in the far north of Sri Lanka, as radio chatter indicated of a possible Indian fishing expedition invading Sri Lankan waters. According to our skipper, the Indian fishermen invading Sri Lankan waters are directly threatening the lives of local fishermen.
On Mondays, Wednesdays and Saturdays, Indian fishing trawlers edge closer to our maritime boundaries. So on those days, we don't set out to sea. Our fishing nets are damaged and broken because of their trawlers. Against such a backdrop, they are trying to give permits for the Indian fishermen to fish in our maritime boundaries.
Newsfirst went closer to the Sri Lanka-India maritime boundary to witness firsthand the Indian invasion. On one side, the border of Rameshwaram in India, and on the other, Kachativu in Sri Lanka. For hours we waited.
Right now we are a few hundred meters away from the India-Sri Lanka maritime boundary. Now we are inside Sri Lankan waters, that's the Sea of Sri Lanka. Now we were told that there are several, possibly hundreds of Indian fishing trawlers about to breach the maritime boundary from Rameswaram in India. Now the time is exactly around 9:45 late in the night, and here we are in the Sea of Sri Lanka attempting to locate some of these Indian fishing trawlers that have been breaching Sri Lankan waters and poaching Sri Lankan marine resources.
As darkness blanketed the Sea of Sri Lanka, we thought we lost hope. And then all hell broke loose as we managed to locate two Indian fishing trawlers sitting silently in Sri Lankan waters 2 kilometers away from the Delft island, stealing valuable maritime resources. These boats were carrying the Indian flag.
We're still chasing them. You can see them. These are massive fishing trawlers, and they're doing the bottom trawling, illegal bottom trawling system to take away Sri Lanka's marine resources. Look at these big ships that are chasing Sri Lanka's waters.
Eventually, the Indian trawler absconded their massive nets and were chased off.
After hours and hours of searching through the northern seas in pitch darkness, we managed to locate two Indian trawlers and then drive them out of the Sri Lankan waters, drive them out of the Sea of Sri Lanka back to the Indian territorial waters where they belong. Now it must be noted that if this continues, Sri Lanka will not have any more marine resources to cherish, especially in the sea in the northern part of Sri Lanka. If Indian trawlers and Indian fishing boats breach the maritime boundary and come into Sri Lankan waters, everything that is in these beautiful waters, in this beautiful ocean, will be lost. Zulfikar Farazan, News First, in the north of Sri Lanka.
Stay tuned to News First, as we will bring you a detailed report on Indian fishermen encroaching on Sri Lankan waters.
Farmers in several districts complain that they have been adversely affected as a result of not receiving organic fertilizer and paddy seeds. This report sheds light on the woes of our farmers.
Water has been released to several cultivation fields in the country ahead of the yallow cultivation season. But farmers say they have not received adequate facilities, although authorities have instructed them to commence cultivation earlier than usual. While some areas are facing a shortage of fertilizer, farmers elsewhere say that the supply of fertilizer has been restricted. Adding to the woes of farmers is the shortage of paddy seeds to commence cultivation. Fertilizer is required to commence cultivation, but we have not received fertilizer yet. This shows that the government is not prepared. There are no paddy seeds as well. They are yet to supply them. The time frame to cultivate this batch of crops has lapsed, but we haven't received paddy seeds yet. To whom can we relate these problems? What is the system? We received only 10 kilos of fertilizer. It is insufficient to cultivate at least 1 acre. The fertilizer sold in stores is expensive, but we purchase them to fulfill the shortage. They are depriving us of fertilizer concessions. Our fields receive water on the 1st of April. We haven't received paddy seeds yet. Fertilizer hasn't been provided as well. They are asking us to sow our fields for 24 days.
Percentage of water is going to waste. They said that we will receive 10 kilos of fertilizer, but that is insufficient for our fields.
We receive only about 9 kilos of fertilizer for an acre of land. Point out a farmer who would say that this is sufficient. No one would say that. Is there a fertilizer shortage in the country? There is no shortage of fertilizer provided by the government for paddy cultivation. Our storage facility holds the entire quantity needed to meet the requirements in Ampara. Around 200 metric tons have been released already as well. We have notified the National Fertilizer Secretariat that we need 8,436 metric tons of fertilizer for the yellow season. We have stored them in our facilities. There is no shortage of fertilizer. What we require now is organic fertilizer, but there is a slight shortage of urea and other fertilizer types in our storage facilities. The farmers expect to collect all 3 types of fertilizer at once. Since there is a shortage of other types, they are complaining of a fertilizer shortage. Stocks of fertilizer were unloaded from a vessel that arrived at the Colombo port today. Against such a backdrop, what is the reason for this crisis? In a bid to promote organic fertilizer, the government has decided to cut down concessions on chemical fertilizer on a policy basis. We must gradually adopt the usage of organic fertilizer. Therefore, the government has decided that 70% of chemical fertilizer and 30% of organic fertilizer will be released to selected areas. This is aimed at reducing the usage of organic fertilizer. Both organic and chemical fertilizer can be obtained from agrarian service centers free of charge. We will issue the required paddy seeds to the farmers. There must be sufficient stocks of paddy seeds for this cultivation season, but that is not the case. The government does not have a proper plan as well. The government has deprived us of fertilizer while not having a proper work plan to promote organic farming. Fields have been sown in Ranjanganaya. This is the same situation in Gal Oya, which is home to the largest farming community. By the 20th or the 25th, we must finish sowing these fields. Farmers have not received fertilizer. They know the exact time period during which fertilizer, water and paddy seeds are required. But the ministers have failed to manage the situation.
Beneficiaries of the government's 5,000 rupee allowance face difficulties in collecting their handouts in several parts of the country today. Tensions arose in Mallavapitiya after authorities handed over only 3,000 rupees to the beneficiaries, well short of the promised allowance.
මෙතර 5000 දෙන එක දෙන්න ඕනේ. අනිවාර්යයෙන් ගිනු අනිත් ඒවා පස්සේ කපා ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒවා වෙනම. මෙතෙන්ට අදාළ නැහැ නේ ඒක 5000 දෙන එක දෙන්න ඕනේ. 5000 රජෙන් දීලා තියෙන්නේ 5000 අපිට අනිවාර්යෙන් දෙන්න කියලා. අර පාරේ කී දෙනෙක් බැනගෙන ගියා. කඩේට ගිහිල්ලා මාරු කරගෙන ආවා. අපිට වඩා දුප්පත් මිනිස්සු ඒ මිනිස්සු මේකෙන් අවුරුදු කන්න බලාගෙන ඇති.
These beneficiaries pointed out that 2,000 rupees had been deducted from the 5,000 rupee allowance to be deposited in an account named Diriyamata. The Kurunagala police then intervened to restore the situation back to normalcy. Our correspondent reported that the 5,000 rupee allowance was then dispersed among those present. Meanwhile, some of the beneficiaries were seen queued up for several hours in Anuradhapura to collect their handouts. According to our correspondent, officials had also faced difficulties as the venue in which the handouts were to be given had been padlocked. Our reporter at the location said that the 5,000 rupee allowance was later distributed among those present. However, people of Kapparatota South who anticipated receiving the allowance had to return home empty-handed. This was because their names had not been included in the list of beneficiaries.
අද දුන්නේ පොරොත්තු ලේඛනය කිව්වා. දැන් අපි කොරෝනා වලටත් අපිට 5000 දුන්නනේ. දැන් ඉතින් මේ වාරික දෙකක් දුන්නා. දැන් කියනවා මේ තවත් දෙන්නේ නැතිලු. ඒකට රජෙන් කිව්වනේ අධීර 5කට මහත්තයෝ දෙන්නේ කියලා. ගෙදරට අවිලා ලියාගෙන ගියා. නන්නති කට්ටිය සේරම ලියන් ගිහලා අන්තිමනේ මගේ නම නැහැ. දැන් ඇහුවම කියනවා අනේ අම්මේ ඒ කාලෙදී ඇත්තටම දැන් දෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ කාලෙ දීලා මටත් දුන්නනේ 10000. ඉතින් දැන් මගේ නම නැහැ.
By the end of yesterday, we provided 1,310,000 families with the 5,000 rupee allowance. If a person, for any reason, was not able to collect the money today, they can collect the allowance on the 15th.
නැවත 15 වෙනිදා සිට එම මුදල් ලබා ගැනීමට හැකි.
Farmers continue to stage their struggles, although the Hambantota managed wild elephant reserve has been gazetted. The Satyagraha launched by farmers of Valsapugala entered its 87th day today. The objective of gazetting the managed wild elephant reserve was to provide a habitat for elephants. However, farmers say that they do not agree with the area that has been allocated for this purpose.
We are not willing to accept this gazette. That is because they did not publish the gazette after consulting the farmers who are engaged in the struggle. We don't know whether they have published this by including regulations that will favor racketeers and politicians in carrying out their activities without any disruption. We must clearly identify the land that must be given to animals. I wish to state that the gazette that has been published is a farce and not a lawful one. Therefore, do not try to deceive us. We know the law and the boundaries of this land. We know the ideal habitat for these animals as well.
The regulations concerning this reserve are yet to be gazetted despite demarcating the area. Accordingly, another gazette needs to be published for this purpose. Until the gazette is published, the Hambantota managed wild elephant reserve cannot be maintained practically.
The relevant regulations have been published. That is why there were delays. If more regulations need to be formulated, we will hold talks with the Mahavali Authority and decide on that. We have to resolve some issues regarding certain elephant corridors with the Mahavali Authority. Administrative matters will take place through the Department of Wildlife Conservation. We will sort out matters relating to elephant corridors. Minister Chamal told me that I can take the relevant decision since I am in charge of this. I told him that there are certain chain farmers in the area and that I can sort out issues with them. But I asked the minister to drive away the businessmen. I also said that there are rock quarries in the area as well. I don't have any ties with those individuals, but if we drive them away, then there will be a shortage of stones in that area. I told the minister that the required quarries will be allowed to function and the others can be closed off. He said that I can take whatever the decision I want.
මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ අලින්ට
In this area, GPS collars were used to track the movement of elephants. What you can see is the area in which these collars were used. On certain occasions, we saw less movement in these areas. What you see on screen is the area that has been gazetted. There is a difference between the gazetted area and the movement of elephants. The urban areas in the vicinity of the expressway have been excluded. Therefore, what is important is to gazette an area that can be inhabited by these elephants.
පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රදේශයක් විදිහට නැවත සකසා ගන්න එක.
Farmers of Valsapugala are carrying out a struggle to provide a safe habitat for wild elephants. When humans block the pathways to elephant habitats, they will have to pay the price with their lives. These wild elephants that constantly encroach into human habitats not only destroy human lives but also their cultivations as well. If no proper management is in place, won't human and elephant lives be lost owing to the unresolved human-elephant conflict?
Heshan Malisha is a grade 5 student in Mahannan area primary school in Galgamua. Malisha is to sit the grade 5 scholarship examination this year. Malisha and his family had to face an unexpected incident last night. A herd of elephants that encroached into the village flattened Malisha's house to the ground. Now Malisha and his family have no place to live and nothing to eat. Malisha's father and his mother, who farm for a living, are more upset about the destruction of their son's textbooks rather than the destruction of their house. People in Pungankulama village in Nan area, Galgamua, have been battered by wild elephants since many years. The electric fence surrounding the village is dysfunctional. What can children like Malisha do to prevent attacks of this nature? The only request of these innocent villagers who do not even think about harming others is a permanent solution for the human-elephant conflict.
In more local news, Venerable Muruthettuwe Anandathero expressed these views today regarding a statement made by State Minister Diluma Munugama in Kandy yesterday.
If the public are blaming the government for its lack of progress, then they do so because the people voted President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to power, expecting him to play the part of a dictator and get things done. Even the Mahasangha expressed the same sentiments. They said it does not matter even if you become a Hitler. But today people are blaming him for not being a Hitler. This is the root cause for him to be reprimanded. Even I believe that. The 6.9 million that voted for him believe that he should be a Hitler of some sort. He is being blamed for not doing that. I don't think the president wants to become like Hitler at once. But if he is pushed to become like Hitler through the actions of various groups, he will turn into a Hitler and then no one will blame him. Everything will be fine.
We don't think President Gotabaya will become a Hitler on any grounds. Truth be spoken, the Rajapaksas are a group of leaders who worked against the Hitlers. I do not know whether the ministers make such remarks to get credits from anyone or to destroy the country. We do not know that. We condemn such statements. This island where Lord Buddha visited 3 times and our Dhamma is based on kindness. No one can boast or claim that 6.9 million votes were received because of him. Only Mahinda Rajapaksa can make such a claim. And there was indeed an additional vote count of around 500,000 votes. But now that vote base is gone. If anyone is telling the president to be like Hitler, I am sure the public will respond to such comments and will believe that such a thing would happen soon. After the leadership of Mahinda Rajapaksa, we have no idea as to who we should stand with.
The German ambassador to Sri Lanka, Holger Subert, today responded to a statement made by State Minister of Vehicle Regulation and Bus Transport Service Dilum Amunugama regarding Adolf Hitler. The German ambassador tweeted, quote, "I am hearing claims that a Hitler could be beneficial to Sri Lanka today. Let me remind those voices that Adolf Hitler was responsible for human suffering and despair beyond imagination, with millions of deaths. Definitely no role model for any politician." End quote.
National organizer of the Foundation to Protect Consumer Rights, Asela Sampath, who was highly critical of the sugar scam, the import of carcinogenic coconut oil and the concessionary food pack from Sathasa, has been arrested by police. The Fort Police arrested him this morning on an arrest warrant issued in April 2019. The open warrant for his arrest was issued by the Fort Magistrate over allegations that he entered the Consumer Affairs Authority and reprimanded and threatened officers there. Meanwhile, the police said that Asela Sampath will be produced in court tomorrow morning.
He spoke highly critically of the people's cost of living and the increase in the prices of goods. I believe that this arrest is a result of those actions. Especially, he revealed the true details on how Minister Bandula Gunawardena deceived the general public with his concessionary food packs. He spoke in a language that the people can understand to reveal the truth. I believe recently Bandula Gunawardena even issued a warning and said that he should be arrested. We are now suspicious as to whether this arrest had any connection to the statement made by Bandula Gunawardena.
Do you remember the murder of trade unionist Sunil Jayawardana, who fought for the rights of the people alongside Asela Sampath? Jayawardana's murder occurred opposite a finance company after an argument over irregularities in leasing facilities for 3-wheel drivers. 8 suspects arrested over Sunil Jayawardana's murder. Nugegoda Chief Magistrate orders for a Government Analyst report on the incident. 3 witnesses identify few suspects during an identification parade. Mirihana Crimes Branch launches further investigations. The incident continues to be taken up in court. This is a reminder for the people.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa visited Ranjan Ramanayaka in prison today. Ranjan Ramanayaka is currently serving his sentence at the Angunukola Palace prison. The humanitarian Ranjan Ramanayaka is an asset to this nation. He is a person who performed a yeoman's service for Sri Lanka. Therefore, we will continue to strive to do all that we can for his well-being legally according to the constitution.
Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Ki Zeng Hong, wished all Sri Lankans for the upcoming Sinhala and Tamil New Year.
In a communique released by the Chinese ambassador, he says, in the past year, the political mutual trust between China and Sri Lanka has been further cemented. The Chinese ambassador goes on to note that President Xi Jinping and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had 2 phone conversations of great significance and reached many broad and important consensus on bilateral cooperation and providing strategic guidance for the further development of China-Sri Lanka relations. The release adds the tangible outcomes have been constantly achieved in the development of the Colombo port city and Hambantota International Port as the new duo engines of Sri Lanka's economic growth. The Chinese ambassador goes on to add that China and Sri Lanka Joint Research and Demonstration Center for Water Technology as well as the National Nephrology Specialist Hospital will be soon commissioned.
While the Chinese ambassador has said that the presidents of Sri Lanka and China have discussed matters of bilateral importance, Foreign Secretary retired Admiral Jayanath Kolmbage had told the CGT and media outlet that China is of economical importance to Sri Lanka.
Well, you see, we do have the debt issue. We can't deny that. The debt to GDP ratio in Sri Lanka, I'm talking about the external debt to GDP ratio in Sri Lanka is about 86%, which is very high for a developing country. But the accusation of debt trap diplomacy by China is not true. As of 2019 end, we had about 57 billion US dollars as debt we needed to repay. But out of that 57 billion, less than 9 billion we have taken from China. So therefore this debt trap is not true. But of course, you know, we are a democratic country. Within the country also there are, you know, different opinions, and also the West is not very happy about the China being a development partner here. So those factors are there. So there will be criticism, but the major criticism was the debt trap, which is not true. I mean, it is proven by using the figures, the facts. So it is not true. What we need is to maintain friendly relations with all countries in the world. And China is very important economically because the investment and the undertaking of mega infrastructure projects, China is of critical importance to our economy. If you take, for example, the Hambantota port, and we need to complete that project because there is one more phase to be completed, the phase 3 that is undertaken by the Chinese companies. And then also we have another mega project called the Port City project, and that is also handled by Chinese companies, I think China Harbour Engineering Corporation. So we welcome investment. We welcome investment from anywhere, whether it is West, whether it is East, whether it is Middle East, Africa. We need investment. Because of the debt situation, we are not interested right now in taking more loans, because if we take loans, we have to pay. What we are now interested is attracting foreign direct investment by using the strategic location, by using the location of the country across the busiest shipping lanes. We need to capitalize on that and to attract investment. And right now, China is one of the largest investor, and we do welcome China investment very much.
Though the Foreign Secretary speaks about attracting FDIs instead of loans, the government yesterday signed a loan agreement for $500 million with the China Development Bank, which will be dispersed this week. The $500 million loan was part of a $1 billion loan, out of which $500 million was released last year.
Regardless of whatever is said, Sri Lanka is caught in a debt trap. How much do we owe China? We owe them about 600 billion for projects. That would mean that we owe China 19% out of the total debt for all projects. This includes projects to build roads, airports, the Lotus Tower, the cricket stadiums as well. In addition, we also owe China for loans obtained for other purposes. If we consider the country's total debt, we owe China 12% of that. This is the highest we have to settle among all countries. This is the reality. We export only 2% of goods to China, but the highest amount of imports are from China. China accounts for more than 20% of our imports. Sri Lanka has continued to owe China a massive amount of debt. Therefore, the assistance that can be given by China to settle the debt is limited.
The new year marks a period of happiness for all of us. But exercising caution is important to ensure the safety of ourselves and everyone around us as well.
8 lives were lost during a motor accident during the last 24 hours. A man lost his life in Hatton after being run over by a private bus last evening. The bus had been speeding towards the Hatton bus stop and had collided with 2 pedestrians in the vicinity. The deceased has been identified as the 32-year-old resident of Norwood. The other pedestrian who was injured in the mishap is receiving treatment at the Dikwea Base Hospital. Meanwhile, a bus had collided with a motor vehicle in Kottawa, claiming the life of one individual. A head-on collision had occurred between a three-wheeler and a van in Homagam as well. In a separate incident, an accident occurred along the Padiniya main road in Anuradhapura as well. This was after a motor vehicle had veered off the main road after the driver had lost control of the vehicle. The driver had been injured in the incident. Meanwhile, an individual lost his life during a collision that had occurred in the Ranwala area along the Colombo Kandy main road. The accident had occurred between a lorry and a bus, claiming the life of a 30-year-old resident of Gampola. Think about the value of your life and those surrounding you. Do we need to act carelessly if we don't intend to lose our precious lives in accidents? Such accidents can cost your life and affect those surrounding you as well. Let us think twice before enjoying the happiness of the new year in a careless manner. This is a request that all of us have from Newsfirst.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, has raised concerns over new legislation passed in the UK to protect their troops overseas.
In a communique, the Human Rights Council stated that the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights had urged legislators in the United Kingdom to heed warnings that the proposed new Overseas Operations, Service Personnel and Veterans Bill in its current form risks undermining key human rights obligations that the United Kingdom has committed itself to respect. The release notes, unless suitably amended, the bill could lead to shielding military personnel operating abroad from due accountability for acts of torture or other serious international crimes. Bachelet said the bill would make it substantially less likely that UK service members on overseas operations would be held accountable for serious human rights violations amounting to international crimes. She added, "I urge UK legislators to ensure that the law of the United Kingdom remains entirely unambiguous with regard to accountability for international crimes perpetrated by individuals, no matter when, where or by whom they are committed."
And that's the wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I am Azra Hassan with our sign language interpreter joining us via Zoom, Brian D. Cruz. On behalf of Newsfirst, I would like to wish all our viewers that the new year that will dawn in a few hours be a very happy and a prosperous new year. We leave you tonight with the blessings bestowed by the Mahasangha upon the nation on this new year. Take care and good night.
The Epilogue.
It is baffling as to whether the true meaning of this new year is understood by the people. The pure qualities of the new year has been corrupted by commercially driven intentions. That is a sign of our deterioration as a nation. Our people become nationalists only during the new year. Those days people used to worship during the Nonagathaya. Nowadays some people get together and consume liquor during that holy period. That is not a good example. We have to observe the new year that is enriched with great traditions in a holy manner.
සැබෑවටම අපි අර්ථවත් කරගන්නට ඕන. මේ රට සමගියෙන් සමාදානයෙන් යුතුව.
What is most suitable is to carry out your affairs in a peaceful manner in this country. Then this country will prosper. We are a small island. I would like to request everyone to make full use of this new year to uplift our nation.
හැම දෙනා වෙත මෙත් සිත් පෙරටුව ඔබෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
The Epilogue.